DJs think like DJs and they never think like business owners.
This is Wedding DJ School. I'm Josh Mitchell, your guide to the business of a wedding DJ. We're talking with leaders in the wedding entertainment industry. You're going to learn their backstories, how they got started, and where they are today. Mike Petritis is the former owner of Frequency DJs. 5 years ago, he launched Eliix Marketing. That's spelled ELIX.marketing. He's based out of Austin, Texas, and studied marketing at Columbia College, Chicago. You're going to learn a lot from Mike today. He's a treasure trove of information, and you're going to hear his backstory, how he became interested in becoming a DJ in the first place, and then how he charged over $2,000 when he DJ'd his first wedding. You're going to learn how to be confident like that in your own pricing and how to understand the fundamentals of selling and value. You'll hear why he decided to move out of the DJ world and spend more time doing marketing. And there's a lot of actionable advice that will apply to your own DJ business, and it's really going to help you grow and go to the next level. Mike also has a DJ Business Accelerator program that you'll hear about at the end of our podcast today. So be sure to stick around all the way until the end to hear a little bit more about that. So without further ado, here is Mike Petritis.
Yeah, so my name is Mike Petritis. I'm the owner and founder of Eliix Marketing, which is a small and medium-sized digital branding firm based in Austin, Texas. Primarily, we were actually originally found in Chicago, but because I got sick and tired of the cold, moved down to Austin, Texas. Absolutely love it down here.
So tell me a little bit about your DJ history. When did you first become a DJ? How did you start getting paid? And just tell me, because now today you're not DJing full-time anymore. So tell me just a little bit about your trajectory to how you got where you are today. But take me back to the beginning, to when you first got into the business. When was that? Where were you and what were you doing?
So I originally got inspired to get into DJing because, and I'm sure this story is like everyone else, we can go and talk about this for hours. I was the nerdy closet, don't talk to anyone, super awkward kid in middle school. And in 8th grade, I actually went to Disney of all places. And I was there for New Year's. And what's really cool is if you're familiar with Epcot to any degree, there's all the different countries around the lake. And every single country on New Year's celebrates their own New Year's party. And all of them are kind of like their own club, which is kind of cool. It was the first experience for me being of that age. I was around 12, 13, something like that. And I was in the Italy pavilion. They had a trance DJ in the middle. I think his name was DJ Bruno. And this whole idea of this guy manipulating an entire crowd's feelings and emotions purely with music just fascinated the shit out of me. And I'm like, this is really cool. I vibe with the music. I like what's going on here. This guy is kind of like controlling the crowd with nothing more than a couple of flips of some switches and some buttons. I want to do that. I want to be that. And so once I got home from that trip, that following spring, I started going and cutting grass for everyone on my street. And I raised up like $300 and I got a Gem Sound CDM 150, started learning the different bits and bobs of DJing. I started joining Brian Redd and John Lewis on YouTube as like the YouTube DJ movement. That spurred into a whole bunch of things. I started going to Milwaukee every so often to go to YouTube DJs live. And I did a few gigs with Brian Redd. I've met Jonathan Lewis in person a few times. I've traveled to Vegas, to Mobile Beat at times and went to meet them. And just over time, I grew into eventually this company known as Frequency DJs. And Frequency DJs ended up being my own company that I ran for, I think, 6 years, something like that. And we specialized in school dances and Sweet 16s. Being the person that I am, I'm noticing trends all the time. And I realized that I kind of had this marketing mindset ever since the beginning. And I noticed that a lot of DJs were like, the money's in weddings, the money's in weddings, the money's in weddings. And they're not wrong, but no one was actually trying to go and cater to the younger audiences. And me being a teenager at the time, I knew exactly what those people wanted, and I knew exactly how to go and serve them. So I end up doing about 100 or so events a year of different Sweet 16s all over the city of Chicago. I got more and more involved with Boom Entertainment and with dance party DJs and started doing more schools and those massive homecomings that everyone wants to go and do. Loved all of that. It was a fantastic process. But long story short, at the end of it, I realized that I'm destroying my body because I learned very quickly that there is a right and the wrong way to lift things. And literally doing schoolwork during the week, Monday through Friday, and then trying to go and stay up till 3, 4 in the morning on weekends to go and do gigs and strike and tear down shows and stuff. I mean, it was rough. And I unfortunately got to a point where I was having really, really bad back spasms where if I moved like an inch the wrong way, I just had shooting pain at my back. I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. I need to fix this. And so I started switching up my lifestyle, working out more. And eventually when I got into college, I was forced to take a extracurricular activity. Originally, I was going for audio arts and acoustics to go be the guy where I'd snap my fingers in a room and say, okay, cool, put a speaker there, there. Go and mic the drum set at 33 degrees, 10 centimeters off the cymbal or crash cymbal, whatever, do all that. And then I quickly learned how much math was involved and got scared shitless. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. Ended up going, and because I was taking a Marketing 101 extracurricular course, I fell in love with the idea of marketing and realized that I can make 10 times more, if not 100 times more than I was as a DJ and owning a DJ company by just thinking intelligently and trying to go and help people sell themselves better. And so throughout this entire process, I just slowly transitioned into doing more and more marketing. And what was nice was being that a DJ, as you very well know, oftentimes DJs, we're very well-connected people. We meet photographers, videographers, different artists. We work with a lot of venues, caterers. We end up getting referred to all these other events and meeting fantastic people, shaking hands with some famous people every once in a while. And because of that, it kind of just became a natural breeding ground for me to go and grow my marketing company. And so when it was time for me to go and kind of decide on how I was going to establish myself, I actually was given a job offer at Leo Burnett, which, if you're not familiar, Leo Burnett is one of the largest marketing firms in the world. Their clients are Coca-Cola and McDonald's. And I was basically offered a not account manager. It was like some sort of like entry level account management sort of position over there, basically starting salary of like $78,000 a year. And I thought I'm still think I'm crazy at the time, but I said no. I thought that was too easy. I'm of the mindset of an entrepreneurial mindset where I say, I'd rather do it on my own. I think I could do more. I could make more of an impact on my own. And I'd rather go and help someone try to keep food on their table or build a bigger house over their head rather than help some corporate shill go and get a second vacation home or another yacht. So I ended up turning down that job offer, started Eliix Marketing, which Eliix, Eliix, really means nothing. First off, not a single person ever pronounces it correctly the first time, so that's my own fault. But it was funny, we got that because it was one of the last 5 character domains left in the world. So I squatted on that, grabbed that, and then ever since then, because of my network from DJing, we started doing websites, graphic design, social media management for a ton of companies. One of our largest clients was a pudding and jello manufacturer out of Walmart, Raimundo's Foods. Loved working with them. And it kind of spurred from there. Really just DJing was the natural transition piece for me to go into the world of marketing, because I was able to go and do what I love and become a better person and more outgoing, but also network with the right people so that when I found what my true passion was, I was able to go and expand upon that because of what I learned through DJing.
In your experience as a DJ, how many of those were weddings? Did you do any weddings? What was your experience like that?
Yeah, so naturally, because I was working with very young audiences most of the time, Sweet 16s all the time, school dances all the time. I mean, naturally, there's adults there, and they're seeing what I'm able to do, and they see that I'm a little bit more professional than most, and I'm able to go and interact with the crowd at most. And so that actually played to my favor because I did do a lot of weddings. I would say out of all my bookings, maybe 40% were weddings, while 60% were everything else. I did do more weddings the further on or the older I got, just because it was easy money, because it was pretty simple to go and entertain those. I feel like it was a little bit more difficult and I'm sure this is going to cause some hatred on your end. You might get some emails about it, but I think that younger audiences are more difficult at times to play to than a wedding, solely because they're constantly moving forward. And now in today's day and age, where we have things like TikTok and how easy it is to find music on Spotify, tastes in music change so often, you can't stay on top of it as much, and you always had to be creative as a DJ too, because I mean, in the early 2000s, early 2000s to like early 2010s, DJing was a huge culture. I think it's kind of simmered down a little bit, but the DJing, or the aspect of DJing and culture, was so huge that everyone is expecting a certain level of I guess, talent. I mean, they want to see the DJ Pauly D. They want to see the different aspects of people like Z Trip or DJ AM, stuff like that. And so I was always pressured to go and try to go to the next level. Whereas when I go to a wedding, I'm just going basically playing the Moldy Top 100 and then getting a little bit creative and throwing my own flair on that and making sure that grandma's is on the dance floor at the same time that the brides. That was, for me at the time, a little bit more simple than trying to go and constantly be creative and pushing forward in the younger space.
Sure. So tell me about your first wedding. What was that like when you went from this, kind of fast-paced younger audience? Do you remember what it was like? Do you remember, just any details that come to mind from that?
So funny you bring that up. I'm trying to think back to what my first wedding was. I think I remember it was at the time when I owned Frequency DJs, I had 3 other DJs that worked for me. And one of them, his cousin, I believe, is the one who was getting married. And it was an Italian wedding. And it was Italian and Polish combined, which I was cool with because at the time I was dating a Polish girl, so I knew the Polish music. I got that covered. But the Italians, especially Italians in Chicago, they're very opinionated and boisterous. And I was not shying down for my price. So I think my first wedding, I got very lucky. I think I charged $2,100 for my first wedding, and I got it. And the bride and the groom they completely understood as to why I charged what I did. And they've seen me DJ in the past through other events because Jimmy, the guy who actually referred me to go and do it, he talked me up and everything. And we had all these other plans. We did 4 totems around the dance floor. We had a grand entrance to Zed Clarity. I mean, it was insane. I loved it. It was a great time. The problem with it was, and the reason why I have the tonality that I do, is at the end of the night, apparently the uncle of the bride found out how much they spent on the DJ, and he was pissed. Like, he came at me with like fists. And because I was still, I think at the time, I think my first wedding, I was either 15 or 16, maybe 17. I can't remember. I think it was, 15 or 16. Because I was still young, my dad was my roadie. And so he was there and he saw this going down. He's like, oh, snap, let's go. And my dad was a retired CPD officer. So he's like, okay, now I got to go back to my my security days and take care of this. And this guy had to go and actually get escorted out of the venue because he was like completely belligerently drunk. He was not happy that someone spent that much money on a DJ because he thought we were just commodities. And he obviously didn't realize that everyone was having a great time and the dance floor was packed the whole night long. So, I think that was an actual hilarious start to my wedding career, but obviously I didn't forget it, and it was fantastic because I remember, like, I didn't realize, it's funny when you're doing a grand entrance for a bride and a groom, there's an immense sense of pressure on you as an entertainer to make sure it goes flawlessly, that you don't say someone's name wrong, that you don't skip up. That everything is done perfectly. And for me, because I had a slight speech impediment, I still do to this day, I was like stressing the hell out. But the fact that it went off absolutely perfectly, and I was rehearsing the intro at least 50 to 100 times for the week prior to the event because I wanted to go and time it so I knew exactly what hot cue to start with Clarity, so that when the beat dropped, the bride and groom walked down the aisle. And I was timing it with every single time. And the fact that when I delivered it, it went absolutely perfectly. Like, I should have freaking teared like a little girl. It was great. I'm like, this is fantastic. This feels really good. I absolutely loved it. And it's funny because I still definitely love DJing. I mean, I still have my 1200s right here. I still love DJing for all types of crowds, but it's moments like that where you're making a memorable difference in someone's life because that's that moment that really matters. It's going to stick in their head. That means something. That really kind of like moves you a bit.
I want to unpack a couple things that you said as you were just describing all that. There's a lot in there that I just want to go back and look at. So first thing, just as a takeaway for anybody listening right now, is this idea that you didn't go out and get your first wedding and charge the amount that you did. You had been DJing before. You had experience and you had a rapport. You had understanding of how things work, how to create energy. And even though, you were practicing 50 times before that first introduction, you had done your time, so to speak. You put in the hours to know how to DJ, to know how to be with a group. So I just wanted to distinguish that and then ask you, talk to me about just confidence in pricing, because for your first wedding, for somebody listening right now, they might feel like, what do I charge? Do I charge enough? Tell me a little bit about just your philosophy of pricing and how you were thinking through that lens as early as you were.
So first and foremost, I do want to go and make sure that we establish the fact that my first gig ever was a Halloween block party down the street from where I grew up, and I was getting paid all of $50 to go and do it. I was DJing on that CDM 150 that I was talking about, and then I used my dad's college Mariner like tower bookshelf speakers, and I got paid $50. I ended up actually making $100 that night because someone got really drunk and really wanted to hear David Bowie and tipped me another $50. So there's that. The reason why I was able to get so confident in my pricing is just the idea of confidence as a whole. And this is not just pricing for weddings. This is pricing for anything. You can get paid whatever you want. It really boils down to being confident behind that price. And I think a lot of us, you're your own worst critic. And so whenever you think back or you listen back to a recording of your intros or of your mixes, whatever, you're finding every little detail. I mean, you probably can go and pinpoint the exact position of the mix where you cut the mids too early or the highs too early, the bass too early or something like that. No one else really knows or cares. Of course, I'm all for the journey to go and learn and grow as a DJ, absolutely. But the thing is that we're doing amazing things. We're making bad days good and good days great. We're like the ambassadors of emotions when it comes to the time of an event. We're controlling that room. And the idea that we can completely flip the emotion of an event on its head at a split second just by flipping a crossfader, I mean, that's huge. And no one really goes and realizes how important that is. So when you think about it as like, hey, I'm really controlling the room here, I do all these different things. If you can go back and appreciate yourself for everything that you've done, you realize how good you are at what you do. I'm not saying that you should stop practicing or stop growing. That's absolutely necessary to become a better person. However, I mean, give yourself credit where credit is due. And I think that really when it comes to a sale, whether it's a wedding, school dance, Sweet 16, whatever, it really boils down to ensuring that two things. One, that you produce or sell that you're giving more value than you're actually charging. So if you go and present to them $2,000 worth of value, but you're only charging $1,500, they're going to book you every single time, period, as long as it's within their budget. But two, if you say that $1,500 with confidence, they're going to book you. Now, numbers are arbitrary, but really when it comes down to, if you sound very timid and unsure and you're mumbling or you're stuttering as you deliver the price of, let's say it was $3,000 for a wedding package, they're not going to book you because they don't believe that you believe in yourself. It really boils down to that. As long as you're confident, you say, hey, my price is $3,000, then they're going to believe you. And really, I've actually told some of my students that I work with is if you don't believe in yourself, if you're not confident, I'm going to assign you a task. Lock yourself in a bathroom, kind of like you're doing the Bloody Mary thing for Halloween. But instead of doing that silly stuff, tell yourself that your price is $3,000 or $4,000, whatever price you want to go and charge. Tell yourself that over and over and over again until you internalize it and truly believe it. Because when you believe in it and you have the confidence behind that number and you can justify it and you know how to navigate the sales process, they're going to book you. The sales process is not this arbitrary kind of battle of, okay, they're wanting to spend this and this is what I want to charge them and I have to go and negotiate up to there. No, it's simply saying, okay, here's my price, here's my value, which far exceeds my price, but I'm going to go and deliver all of this with confidence. They're going to book me. They're looking for an entertainer. And now me as an entertainer, I have to do my job as a business owner to go and actually close this deal.
What value for somebody right now who doesn't have the equipment yet, or they don't have tens of gigs that they've done, which I know it sounds like, they don't have a huge repertoire. What are some quick takeaways for those people to gain that type of confidence, even if they don't have that backlog of experience? What would you say to somebody in that position?
From a grander sense, this comes back to something that I've actually kind of self-discovered lately. And this doesn't even necessarily just apply strictly to DJing. This is everything as a whole. I feel like as a society today, we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. We see what other people do on Instagram, on Facebook, etc. And honestly, I've found that I've been far more productive and been able to go and gain so much more confidence and be so much more successful just by shutting out everything else that's going on in the world and focusing on where I'm at currently. So if you're just starting out and you're trying to go and grow a business here, don't worry about what anybody else says. They might judge you. They might tell you to go do this, that, whatever. Here's the one thing. I might be the first one to say it. There are a ton of industry experts out there who all have their own opinions, and guess what? They're all valid in their own right, but they may not apply to you directly. The real key to success here is listening to as much information and education as possible and then making it work for you. You have to find your own groove, your own vibe when it comes to sales and growing. And even some of the things that I say right now and in this entire interview, they might not work for you. And that's totally fine. I mean, my mindset, the way I work is different than the way you work. But what I'm saying here is that you might go and constantly compare yourself to ABC DJs or XYZ DJs. It doesn't matter what they're doing. You focus on what you're doing. So while you might lack the confidence because you're constantly comparing yourself to these other people in your market, don't worry about them. Worry about bettering yourself first, and then everything else will follow.
Tell me a little bit about your DJ pet peeves. I'm always curious to know, like, what things just rub you the wrong way, or if you could give some advice to somebody, hey, don't do these kinds of things, what comes to mind?
My number one biggest pet peeve, great question. My number one biggest pet peeve is honestly when DJs say that they specialize in weddings, school dances, sweet 16s, bar and bat mitzvahs, christenings. They have a laundry list of services. You don't specialize in 14 different things. That's not specialization at all. One thing that I work with a lot of DJs on is honestly compartmentalizing or breaking out different sub-brands in your company. So let's go and say you own XYZ DJs and you do weddings, but you also do school dances. I would highly suggest that you open up a separate DBA, and that's just a division of your company that solely focuses on school dances. Because I always give this metaphor. If I really wanted tacos right now, would I rather go to TGI Fridays that has a little bit of everything on the menu? Or am I going to go down the street to the taco joint where everyone behind the counter only speaks Spanish and all they put on their tacos is onions and cilantro? I'm going to go to the place that specializes in freaking tacos because that's all they do. If I go to TGI Fridays, they might be decent tacos, but they're kind of, why would I go for meh when I can go for great? And there's a huge difference in that. And so anytime I read on someone's website that they specialize in a laundry list of different services, I just shake my head and say, okay, this guy needs help. So please don't do that.
I love that. Yeah. And I mean, it's really having an understanding too of language and that idea of specialization. It has to be focused. You have to decide, hey, here is what I'm going to specialize in. And I think sometimes people just have a misunderstanding of what that is. And if you're doing everything mediocre, you're not doing anything singular well. So it's about focusing on what is the one thing that you really want to bring excellence to, put your energy into that and make it work. Any other pet peeves that come to mind in terms of performance or in terms of, just best practices about how they operate the business and that side of things?
Okay. So in terms of business operations, I'm very business minded. I would definitely go and say that DJs think like DJs and they never think like business owners. I completely respect the talent. I completely respect the hustle. I completely respect the mixing, the scratching, the time that you put into practice. But really, you need to understand at the end of the day, you are given this huge opportunity right now to go and do what you love. You can go and do your passion and get paid for it. You can make a living off of DJing. But in order to go and do that and really make a true living and raise a family off of DJing alone, you need to treat it like a business. You cannot go and treat it the exact same way that you did years ago when you started in your bedroom. You need to think like a business owner. And so I know a lot of guys who they run by the seat of their pants. They go and they'll have a single templated contract on Microsoft Word. They'll just copy and paste things in there and send off those little agreements. They don't do accounting. They don't have a CPA. They don't have a tax planner. They don't have sales reps. They're constantly thinking about just the next event, and they're living event to event. And you can't think like that. You really need to treat this like a business, and you need to constantly be aware of where your numbers are at and what's your closing rates, what's your cost per acquisition, all these other things these are terms that are quite common in the DJ world, in the business world, but not the DJ world. it's really funny because I mentioned that when I went to college, I have a degree in marketing. I finished that degree, but when I was studying for that degree, I realized that I was behind everyone else in the classroom because everyone else up until that point were taking business classes. I joined as a marketing major 2 years into college. I switched halfway through. And so even though I thought that I was above everyone else because I owned a business for as long as I did, the issue is that I wasn't running a business the right way. I had no idea what I was doing. I was doing okay, but I wasn't doing great because I didn't understand the fundamentals of business. And I'm not saying college is going to go and teach you those fundamentals, but literally you can go and just start studying business directly. Go and buy business books. As much as I love Joe Bunn, Alan Berg, all these other amazing people in the wedding industry, there's an entire world out there. There's entire sections of libraries dedicated to business books. Go and get a couple of those every once in a while and read some books from outside your world. I mean, you're not going to hire another DJ to do your taxes, are you? No, you need to go and speak to someone who's really good at taxes. You're not going to go and entrust a Boy Scout to go and cook you a 3-star Michelin meal. No, you have to go to that chef. There's people who specialize in these various things. And I would strongly encourage anyone who's listening to go and think a little bit outside the DJ bubble for a bit and realize that ultimately you're running a business, because I'm sure all of us who are listening to this podcast, there's a reason why you're listening. You want to go and grow. You want to be a better business person. You want to be a better DJ. You want to be able to continue to do your passion so that you can go and support your family by doing what you love. And in order to go and do that, you need to take the business side seriously, because otherwise you will fail eventually. You might get by for the longest time, but you'll never see any substantial growth, and that's going to really hurt you long run.
What is one problem that, when you were still DJing more regularly, and I realized, that you've made a transition personally that's amazing. I think that's such a good call that people need to be aware of, that like, look, if you have this passion somewhere else, you might be able to grow that, and your DJing expertise can help you in that area as well. But what was a problem or something that basically what I'm trying to get at is, a problem that you still dealt with even after years and years of DJing, something that you thought might go away, but even after doing it for a while, you're like, oh, I still have to deal with this issue. Anything come to mind?
That's a good question. Do I have any lasting issues are you talking about like things that spurred off or started when I was DJing, or?
Kind of what I'm getting at here is like, okay, it takes time to organize your music, or it takes time to make sure that your stuff is, test out your equipment, or something like that, that like in the early days, you're like, oh, once I get to a certain level, I'll never have to do this anymore. But then you realize, like, wait a second, this is part of the job. So to kind of encourage somebody on the front end of their journey, hey, look, like this quote unquote problem that you're having, like, no, that's actually just part of what it is. And so I'm looking at something like that. What is a problem that you still deal with, or that a DJ might still deal with in 5 or 10 years from now, that they still might be dealing with right now on the front end, and something that just really doesn't go away that you have to deal with?
Okay, so there's actually 2 things that come to mind. First and foremost, this first one actually might be part of the previous question with the pet peeves, but don't ever think that I'm going to go and buy this one piece of gear and then it's going to solve all my problems and I'll never have to worry about it ever again. Please understand that if you have a pair of speakers that still make noise and they sound decent, nobody cares if they're shaped like a stick, or if they're a constant curvature array or a vertical array, or have weird sound bending powers that can go and take care of an L-shaped room. Like, nobody gives a flying damn. I'm going to go and self-moderate myself there. You need to understand that the general populace, it does not understand where DJ technology is, and they don't care about where it is. You're there to go and shape the emotions and the feelings of the room. And if you're ever trying to go and justify the purchase of, let's say, a Nimbus or a Sparktacular machine or a new controller, unless you absolutely need to, or unless you already have 7, 8 bookings for these Sparktaculars already sold and you have the deposits for them, there's no need to purchase them, which is also a quick little side note or a gold nugget. If you don't have something but you want to get it, start selling it. I am never afraid to go and do it, either myself or my students, to go and tell someone, hey, if If you want to go and purchase a new TV or a new set of Spartaculars or more uplights, go and sell them now, because chances are those weddings are not going to be for another 12 months. And you have time to go and book, let's say, 20 gigs with them now, and then you don't owe anything out of pocket to go and buy those actual lights. Just go and take care of it. So that's one thing. And secondly, one of the things is kind of checking your own pride at the door. And what do I mean by that? And this is, again, from a business perspective, I'm a very, very cheap person. I hate putting any capital expenditures out at all. If I can do it myself, I will. And oftentimes I even do this to myself, where I realize that, hey, I can go and save myself so much time and so much money and so much stress by hiring someone else to go and do this for me. So let's go and say that one weekend you have a wedding on a Friday and a wedding on a Saturday. And you might also have a Sweet 16 on that Saturday as well, actually. Let's go and frame it that way. So you book your own self because you want to get the most money out of your pocket as you can. You do the wedding on Friday, and then you tell yourself that you also want to go and do that wedding on Saturday, so you get more of a payout versus sending your friend to go do the Sweet 16. But what you're forgetting is you might have the mental, I guess, you might feel a little bit tired from the day before, and you're not going to perform the actual gig as well as you could if you were to be fresh and you didn't work on Friday. And so don't be afraid to send other people out for events, even though it might feel like you're getting more or less out of pocket, I should say. You're still saving yourself time and money. And I think a lot of people, they really kind of underestimate the price of time and the price of your mental health. Anxiety hits me hard at times, but it's the hard truth that even though if I'm going to go and spend, let's say, $300 to send someone out to go and do this gig for me, it saves me over $1,000 in, let's say, currency in my head, so that I'm healthier as a mental person, or healthier and I have less anxiety. Hopefully that makes sense. But I really do think that you can't get in your own way and be afraid to spend money where it doesn't immediately make sense to you because you feel like you want to make more money. But honestly, there's a lot of times where it's worth making that small little investment so that you can feel much better long term.
Love it. Hey, so as we wrap up here, what is one goal that you're working on right now in any of your companies? Just curious about what's something that you're working toward, a big plan or a big project that you're hoping to see come to fruition in the next year or so.
Yeah. So right now, my personal goal is for 2020 to become a $2 million company. Right now, we're currently just under $1 million, and we're on trajectory to go and hit that. But I want to go and double that over the next year. And you know what's really funny is because I've hired mentors in my past as well, and I've always been that person who I hear people talk about $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, whatever, and it's always scary to think about those numbers because they seem so big and so ominous. The problem is that they're really not that big, and they're completely attainable as long as you have systems and you think about it backwards. For me personally, I mean, if I were to break it down this way, the easiest way to think about it is if you were to go and tell yourself, okay, I want to go and double my actual cost of living every single month. Let's go and say you are $5,000 out of pocket every single month between your housing, your bills, your car payments, food, etc., and you want to make $10,000. Okay, cool. How do we work that backwards? If your average booking, let's go and say, I'm going to bring out a calculator to make sure I'm double checking everything I'm doing here. So if you want to go and make $10,000 every single month, and let's go and say your average booking rate for a wedding is $2,500. If we wanted to go and make $10,000 a month, that would be $120,000 a year. We would go and divide that out to $2,500 per wedding. So that's 48 weddings that you have to go and book. Okay. Now, if we're going to go and apply this to the world of advertising, let's go and say you're getting leads at $10 a piece, but you're only closing 1 in 3. So that means your cost per acquisition, meaning it costs you $30 to close a deal. So that means out of 48 gigs or weddings, I need to go and speak to 144 people to go and close those 48. And it costs me $10 per lead. So I have to go and invest $1,440 to go and get those 48 leads so I can go and hit my goal. Sometimes you just need to go and look at your numbers, think about it systematically, and work backwards. because really hitting these big numbers are completely attainable. It's just a matter of figuring out the math, the money math, as I call it. And it's way easier to go and kind of apply it to your business and realize, oh, I'm really not that far from hitting that goal. I just never thought of it this way.
That's awesome. I love it, Mike. Hey, thanks for spending some time with us today on the podcast. Really appreciate it. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you more?
Yeah, go ahead and add me on Facebook. I'm always down to add more friends. My name's Mike Petritis, Petritis on Facebook. You can go and find my company, Eliix Marketing, ELIX.marketing. There's no .com on that. And just go ahead and follow us, see what we're all about. We do also offer a 1-year coaching program for DJs who are really trying to take their business more seriously. There is an application process for that. But if you're really interested in that, go ahead and hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, whatever. It's all the same stuff. Just search Mike Petritis, you'll find me.
All of the links to find Mike will be in the description of today's show, so be sure to check that out and follow him. He posts some fantastic content. I want to thank you so much for being a listener of Wedding DJ School. You can find us over at weddingdjschool.com. Also, you can text Wedding DJ to 44222. We will ask for your email address, and in return, we will send you all of the podcast action guides for season 1 of Wedding DJ School. So you can do that for free just by texting Wedding DJ to 44222. Lots of actionable advice that you can put to use right away, all for free. Well, we're going to continue talking with leaders in the wedding entertainment industry. We will be back next week with a new episode.